Hello. So I want to talk about astrology. I want to talk about conflict. I want to talk about war, and I want to talk about the eclipse, and that's what this video is about. So, for this new moon eclipse, a solar eclipse is a new moon eclipse that's taking place in the sign of Libra on October 14th, which is Saturday, around 11 a.m. Pacific time. We are having this experience also even before that time. As the moon is moving through the sign of Libra, it's going to pass over Mercury, and then during the eclipse, it's passing over the sun, and then after that, it moves across this elliptical point referred to as the south node of the moon. And after that, it'll make its way over to Mars, which will be at that time at 1 degree Scorpio. So all of these planets or celestial bodies or points in the sky are going to be impacted by the eclipse. What's also being impacted by this eclipse is taking place in some other signs. We've got 27 degrees Pluto in Capricorn, which is squaring the eclipse, or the eclipse is squaring Pluto in Capricorn at 27 degrees. And you may recall that the United States Pluto placement, so the birth of the United States astrologers typically uses July 4th, 1776. And when we use that as the birth chart of the United States, we've got Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn. And so what is going on here, I think part of how we are experiencing this astrology and the astrology to come is by examining conflict and conflict among governments. And then also, what does it mean when there's government influence and conflict among governments or between governments, ruling parties, people in positions of power. But then what does it mean about the people? How are the people doing? And I think what we're experiencing right now with witnessing this most recent iteration of war between Palestine and Israel is that we're given an opportunity here to experience this as what it actually is to the living, breathing beings on the land that are going through this. For the United States, a lot of the experience, and I think this is part of how the Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn works into this, particularly as it pertains to the United States, obviously, because that's what I'm talking about. But what has helped the United States government to feel safe and secure is war, right? And this square that's being made, this tension that exists between the lunar event that's taking place, the eclipse that's taking place in Libra. And Libra, what is Libra known for? Diplomacy, justice, the unrelenting quest to experience harmony, which interestingly sometimes makes things so much worse, so much more tense. And yet, I think what we're dealing with right now is some good faith attempts on the parts of some people, some players, some people out here in the world looking at what's taking place between Palestine and Israel and going, who is this about? This is about humans. This is about human life. And not only is this about loss of life, but quality of life, and whether or not we actually consider all humans to be precious. Do we really consider all human life to be precious, or is it only a select few? And the invitation here is to burst out through a ring of fire from some of what has kept the United States feeling safe. If you've had a chart reading with me and we've talked about your Pluto placement, we may have had discussions about some of these subconscious and unconscious behavior patterns that exist for you that help you to stay feeling safe. And often these behaviors are actually harmful, cause harm to you and other living beings around you. But the chaos, or the phrase sort of like the devil that we know, that familiarity, the familiar chaos, the familiar conflict. I don't know what my computer is doing right now, something weird, is what keeps us feeling safe. And it also is what keeps us from actually experiencing real intimacy and connection on occasion, depending on what sort of flavor of Pluto, which house it's in for you. It can be really, it can really vary. So, I mean, many astrologers, when they were taking a look at Pluto, the United States Pluto return, knew that war was on the agenda. Yeah. But what about us? Okay, sure. What about people like you and me? What's it going to be like? Well, we've got a couple things going on. We've got Chiron, which is retrograde. Chiron is known as the wounded healer, an asteroid known as the wounded healer. And in the personal chart might be pointing to some struggles that you have had and will continue to have in whatever area it's in for you. And when we think about Chiron, where it is right now and how that's affecting us, I think we're all experiencing some identity issues, some wounds around how we are perceived as individuals who exist. And even our existence itself is sort of being called into question. Who deserves to exist? And we might not be thinking about our personal experience as aligning with what's going on in the collective with regard to war, whether we're talking about Russia and Ukraine or we're talking about Palestine and Israel. What I'm noticing here also, thank you, is that the ruler of Aries, as you may or may not know, is Mars. And Mars, having been in opposition to the wound of Chiron in Aries for a time, was challenging. It felt perhaps like our attempts at attaining justice or experiencing justice had to come in this way that was very sort of combative. Shots are being fired back and forth type of thing. Now we have Mars edging into Scorpio, and it's going to be a different flavor. I think for Chiron, our Chiron pain in Aries is going to be lessened somewhat because that Mars is way out of the way. It's already out of the way right now. We're not so much in that same energy. But during this eclipse, I think what we can anticipate is that all of the planets and celestial bodies and points that we've talked about that are in Libra right now are going to be linked, and even that Mars and Scorpio is going to be linked to this energy as well. So we'll still feel, I think, an affront, perhaps. Check out your own chart. Take a look at the houses that are home to Libra and to Aries. And in particular, I think we're going to feel the most intensity between 17 degrees Libra Aries. They're on an axis. We could talk more about that some other time. 17 degrees, let's just say 15. 15 degrees Aries through 1 degree Scorpio. 15 degrees Aries through 29 degrees Aries, and even 1 degree Taurus, let's say. And then 15 degrees Libra through 1 degree Scorpio. Where you have placements there is the most intensity. In addition, 15 degrees Capricorn through 1 degree Aquarius, and 15 degrees Cancer through 1 degree Leo, because squares will be made to those placements. Look at your chart. Okay, just look at your chart. See which houses are affected. Style your hair. Okay, bye.